Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Chief Scouts Platinum Award. This is one of the intermediary awards between the Chief Scouts Gold Award and the King Scout Award. Now, if you don't know, that the King Scout Award is the highest award you can achieve in scouting, and it's well recognised. You get a lot of benefits from earning that. It's well recognised by employers and by universities too, as a benefit to help you get into jobs and into university. And this is considered the first real step towards that goal. The previous Chief Scouts awards in scouting, such as the Chief Scouts Gold Award, Silver, Bronze, and the Acorn Award, are all on a slightly different system to the Platinum Award, and the two awards that follow it, those being the Diamond Award and the King Scout Award. The differences being that the Platinum and Diamond and King Scouts awards are directly related to each other so far as if you've earned the Platinum Award, it's easier to earn the Diamond Award. If you've earned the Diamond Award, it's easier to earn the King Scout Award. Now you can start these, I believe, 6 months after joining Explorers, although we'll have a little bit of an Explorer into that. And it means that if you really stay on top of things, you can earn your King Scout Award well before the time that you leave Explorers and turn 18. So if you really want to, you can become a King Scout before you even go to university. I'd certainly recommend trying to push towards that if you can, because it's certainly a great thing to have before you go to university. Although a lot of people nowadays tend to sometimes come back from university, or while they're at university they continue to volunteer and work towards a King Scout Award, because it's a great achievement to actually round out. If you've been in scouting since you were a beaver or a squirrel or a cub, then it's the end of a journey in the way to get to the King Scout Award. So looping back to the Platinum Award, this is the first real step you take towards that. The requirements for earning the award: be a member of the Explorer Scouts for at least 6 months. So you need to be well situated in Explorer Scouts, and remember this is be a member of. So this can be interpreted as after you've been invested. So if you are a scout that's moving up to Explorer Scouts, try to make sure that you decide whether or not you want to be invested as soon as possible and push towards that, because it does count in Explorer Scouts towards these and how quickly you can achieve these top awards. Number 2 here, complete 6 nights away of an Explorer Scout, 4 of which must be camping. And again, this doesn't count the nights you've had in Scouts or Cubs or beforehand, right? And they must not have been used in other sections of this award. So there are some parts of this award which may require additional nights away, and you can't double count those. It's not allowed, unfortunately. You need to have a wider array of experience for those. And 6 nights, it sounds like a lot. It's really not. You have a lot of time in between starting Explorers and finishing Explorers in which to complete these. It's almost certain that you're going to get 6 nights away. I'd be very surprised if not. When I was in Explorers, I did more than 20, easily more than 20. So if that gives you any idea, just make sure you always go on the camps if you can, because it does count towards things, not just towards the main line of awards, which is, for example, this award, the Platinum Award, and then the following Diamond Award and the King Scout. There's also other awards out there, such as the Scouts Wales Dragon Awards, which are very, very interesting awards. I'd recommend you looking into those, or looking at my other videos on those. And additionally, there's also the Scottish Zodiac Award, which also you could earn towards with this. Technically, that's a Scouts Scotland only award, but I've talked to people in Scouts Scotland about it, and anyone can really earn it. It's just whether you want to wear it on your uniform or not is down to you. That's my opinion on that anyway, from what I've done with my own research. Anyway, looping back to the award, number 3 here, we have the most important part, really, which is you have to complete 2 of what are known as ICV sort of activities, and these are the things that are shared generally between the Platinum, Diamond and King Scout awards, and they also carry over So if you, as it says here, you do 2, and generally you do 2 ICVs per award, but that also means that if you have never done your Platinum or Diamond, and you try and jump straight to your King Scout, you have to do all 6 of these ICVs, which tend to be hard to do. So if you can keep up on doing these and do them consecutively, you go from Platinum to Diamond, then to Kings, rather than trying to jump between them, it's far easier to do than otherwise. And number 4 here, essentially hold the Bronze Duke of Edinburgh's award or complete equivalent challenges. So as you may know, the Bronze Duke of Edinburgh, as you may know, the Duke of Edinburgh's awards are generally supported by schools. They are looked down upon in the wider sort of community in terms of employment and universities, because schools are known to sort of not really run Duke of Edinburgh the way it's supposed to be run. There's a lot of skirting around the rules and things like that. So if you get your Duke of Edinburgh awards and it says awarded by the Scout Association, if you're a university or an employer, you should hold that in higher regard than if it's coming from a school, because schools tend to do all kinds of things to skirt the rules. Almost universally in Scouts, we make sure that these are properly done, above board Duke of Edinburgh's awards as they were intended to be, because there's no point in getting an award that you haven't learned anything from. And if you're in Scouting, you are certainly able to do these. We know you are, because you've been in Scouting. You are a Scout, you're an Explorer now. You have the ability to push towards these, and that holds you in very, very good stead for the other awards you can get while you're in Explorer Scouts and beyond, such as, for example, the Explorer Belt, which I'll cover in a different video. But that requires a lot of sort of going off on your own and being self-sufficient. And if you earn your Duke of Edinburgh's awards outside of Scouting, in the short term it may be quote-unquote easier, but in reality it doesn't mean as much when you actually come in to apply to universities and jobs and things, and it doesn't teach you as much. You won't get as much out of it as if you do it properly for those later awards. So we'll move on here. So you'll notice that those ICV, as I mentioned, that ICV stands for International Community and Values, and these are, you have to do 2 of each, ultimately, for your award here, as it says here. Complete 2 from the hang on. So as it says here, the international aspect. Basically, with the ICV values, so here we are at the international aspect. You'll have seen in the previous page that you have to have 2 activities from any of the ICV values, which are international, community, and values aspects. Now, you can take 1 from either, but I'll bear in mind when you do this that when you are counting this up towards your King Scout award, generally for your King Scout award, you want to end up with 2 in each of those different categories. So 2 international, 2 community, and 2 values. So if you want to do a little bit of planning ahead, you can. But the main thing to bear in mind really is that you can't have 2 from the same list. So you've got to have 1 international and 1 values, or 1 international and 1 community, or 1 community and 1 values, for example, right? So the international aspect, So the international aspect, basically you can choose any of these. I'll run through a couple of these which are interesting. You'll see mentioned at the very top there of Explorer Belt. So the Explorer Belt is one of the most well-regarded awards in scouting. I would say it's probably the second or third, with the top being the King Scout Award and Explorer Belt being relatively close to the Scouts of the World Award. Personally, I'd probably put the Scouts of the World Award above the Explorer Belt because the Explorer Belt is done in 10 days, whereas the Scouts of the World Award has to be done over an extended period of time normally. But the Explorer Belt is nothing to scoff at because it is 10 days away in a foreign country, basically, doing travelling. So having this to be part of your international aspect, or a similar version that's only 3 days long, is actually a very good way of looking at things. If you have time to organise that, that's a very good trial run for your Explorer Belt, which you can do in tandem. This can't count towards your Explorer Belt clearly, because Explorer Belts have to be done outside of the UK, but it's a good trial run towards that. Additionally, it says here that you can take part in the project with international development organisations. That can be some kind of charity work or conservation work, whatever you might want to do. Take an active part in a camp or another take an active part in a camp in another country, for example, a jamboree or moot. Present your experience. This is a very easy one. A lot of the time, people tend to go to jamborees. Sometimes you have to get chosen to go to jamborees, especially World Scout jamborees. But there's all kinds of different meetings of scouts across the world, some of which are only across the English Channel. If you're part of an Explorer unit, I'd highly recommend asking about that, or if you're a Explorer leader, I'd definitely recommend thinking about those kinds of things, because generally Explorers are sensible enough to handle that kind of thing, as opposed to Scouts. So that's definitely one thing you can do there. Number 4 is very easy to do. So take an active part in an international camp in the UK. International camp has participants from other countries, an international element of the programme. So there is plenty of different ones of these that are around in the UK. One of the ones that come to mind easiest to me is the Jamboree, the Cheshire Jamboree, as it's known. And that's usually very, very well populated with people from across the world. When I was there many years ago, that was filled with Kenyans and all kinds of other people from across the world. And I still remember that to this day. And they still run the Jamboree every year, I believe, or regularly at least. It's very good fun, and that also counts towards this. So you may already have that planned on your agenda without even knowing it, that you're going to some kind of internationally attended camp. Just make sure that you do actually take note of that and make sure that it's part of your going towards your platinum. Number 5, take part in a project in a campsite abroad. Again, fairly similar to point 3 there. So obviously project depends on your definition of what a project is, but you can talk to your leaders about that. Number 6, organise a series of 2 evening programs for your unit on international theme agreed with your mentor. A mentor can really be anybody that's helping you in the program that is a leader. Generally, it is one of your Explorer Scout unit leaders, although if you're in a district, which you will be, or some equivalent to that, there are people who are part of this program support team who can actually mentor you if your leaders don't know too much about these awards. Although if you're a leader learning about these awards through my channel, I definitely recommend getting in contact with your district team about learning more about it directly from evenings or district meetings. So organising 2 nights, and again, something to bear in mind actually is those 2 nights can actually go towards, I believe, your U-Shape award, which is one of those awards that you can earn as well throughout your time in scouting. So definitely worth looking into that. And number 7 there, organise a series of 2 evening programs within the section on an international theme agreeing with your mentor. And it's worth mentioning that this also can apply towards what's known as a Young Leaders Awards, which are very, very interesting actually. So not one, not two, but 3, I believe, of those sort of awards you can achieve from being a young leader. You can actually wear throughout your time in scouting, even as an adult leader, to show that you've done such a good job with, helping out the movement, even as a young person. So it's very good to look into that, and I definitely recommend choosing that if you can, because it's always great to help with your local group to make sure there's more people. Basically, it takes a bit of the pressure off those few leaders that may be struggling in one of the sections. So definitely talk to your Explorer Scout leaders about that, and so you can talk to your group scout leader as well about that as well. And definitely talk to your Explorer Scout leaders about that. And they can talk to the group scout leader of your group, and then they can hook you up with the beavers or the cubs or the scouts, so that you can get those done. And it definitely takes the pressure off a little bit from perhaps the more stretched sections inside of your group. Number 8, complete any activity of a similar nature agreed beforehand with your mentor. This is a common theme you'll see across all the ICVs, all the way up to Kings. I would recommend best you can to avoid number 8 and to go with something that is recognised, because eventually if you do too many of those number 8s, more than one I'd say, it gets kind of difficult when you try to sign off things like your Kings, where they look and suddenly you've got like 3 or 4 of these non-standard things you've done towards your award. And then that means Gilwell, scouting headquarters, are more likely to sort of squint a little bit at what you've done and ask around about it. So I would, if you're doing your platinum or your diamond, try to lean more towards one of the standardized ones that are dead set to work, that you can prove, rather than number 8, because number 8, Gilwell might disagree with the mentor eventually, which can backfire a little bit. So bear that in mind. Moving on to the community aspect of things, this is one of the other 3 sections. One of the more important ones, but also one of the shorter ones. Essentially, you need to research and participate in something environmental community based, and make an improvement. This can be with Scouts or someone else or some other organisation, and present your experience. What that boils down to is basically do something that has lasting impact, and participate, pretty openly in it for an extended period of time. So this can be, as it says there, helping out with something in your park, perhaps potentially if they're doing some kind of improvements, renovations. I would recommend, for an example, contacting your local National Trust representatives or your local rangers. That's probably a good thing. They've always got projects going on that count for both environment and community. Or if you contact your local council potentially as well, if you'd like, they usually have some kind of local community project work that they need help with. So definitely something to look at. Number 2 there, complete the requirements in order to achieve stage 3 or 4, the community impact stage activity badge. So this is also part of the, I believe, A Million Hands badge, which is the UK scouting take on what was known as a Messengers of Peace badge, which is an international award. And it's interesting to try and go towards that. It's, if you're looking more towards when you're a leader or when you're a network scout, you don't get to keep the community impact stage of activity badge on your uniform. But if you've already reached like stage 2 of that badge from your time in scouts, it is a staged badge, so it carries on to your Explorer uniform. It may be easy to just get that stage 3 or stage 4. You have to think about that on your own, essentially, as to whether you want to do that or not, or as opposed to one of the alternatives here. And number 3, work with the younger section, help them achieve the similar thing. I would highly recommend doing that instead of number 2. Even though number 2 may be easier to just do by yourself, get signed off, in reality, number 3 is going to help you a lot more towards your young leaders sort of awards and things like that, which do persist onto your adult uniform and are considered their own awards in their own right, as well as the Platinum Award, essentially. I'd actually consider the Young Leader belt the highest sort of level of the Young Leaders Awards to be higher in the award system than the Chief Scouts Platinum Award. But of course not as high as the likes of probably the Diamond Award and they're certainly not the King Scout Award. And of course they're number 4, same as the previous slide there. You can agree something different beforehand, but really that covers most bases. That's why there's only 3 different options here. And obviously I'd recommend doing probably stage 3, number 3 of this list, really, because it helps you with other awards at the same time, right? And finally, with the values aspect of things, this can be more difficult if you are not a religious person, as generally, while things in Scouts are moving towards a more open, sort of diverse way of looking at things like values and religion and things, there are some things that are much more easy to do if you're religious than not. I will say. So bear that in mind. So here we go. Number 1 here, take a regular part in spiritual reflection. As it says there, place of worship. If you go to church, this counts quite easily, but really it's not pushing yourself too much. If you've been going to church all your life, then it's kind of I don't want to say, in my opinion, it's not as important as doing something else, like the previous page with helping a different section with the environment. That's something you can do with relatively little effort, but counts a lot towards other things. So take number 1 of values here if you'd like to, but I'd recommend not doing so. Part 2 there, take an active part in a project examining your own faith and beliefs and how they affect you. Discuss and present. Yeah, that's useful. I mean, there's a lot of reasons as to why you want to be introspective about your faiths and beliefs and why you hold them and how they affect you. Because, you know, one of the most important things in life is actually assessing yourself and why you believe the things you believe. Because sometimes just taking things on face value is less useful than actually having a philosophical standpoint that you can explain and justify on. So one to think about there. Number 3, work with a younger section to help them earn their faith activity badge, etc. Yes, exactly. As per the last slide or so, when I mentioned about the young leaders sort of awards, this would also count. I would bear in mind that it depends if you're part of a unit or a group that is single faith or not, and the sensitivities around that. But don't let that scare you off from doing this, because again, anything you can do to sort of help bring your experience to younger sections and things, it helps you get those young leaders sort of awards quicker, and they can sort of synergize quite well, these 2 different awards together that way. Number 4, run activity from another section to explore a promise. Yep, it's exactly the same pretty much. This is a little bit easier for those of people who are of indeterminate faith or of no faith, because the promise and the different versions of that can be all manner of different things. They all follow the Scout law, which is unchanging. So it's worth thinking about that one. Number 5, organise a series of 2 evening activities, different section, to explore different faiths and beliefs. I definitely recommend that. That sounds like a great one. Again, also young leader focused, and that's a very easy one to do, regardless of the dynamics of faiths inside your particular unit or your group. And number 6, as always, you know, you can find something different to do that also falls under values that is comparable to these, but again, it may look a little bit strange later on if you have too many of these on your record when you're going for a King's Scout Award. And remember, something to bear in mind is that you can't do 2 as I mentioned before, 2 of the same for the same award. So you can't do 2 values for platinum. You can't do 2 values for platinum. So you couldn't do, for example, number 3 and number 4. It's not allowed, unfortunately. And then, as we saw in the original slide there, in addition to getting your ICV values, those 2 ICV values done, you need to also achieve your Bronze Duke of Edinburgh's award. And one of the things we can do in Scouts is couple that up very easily with Young Leaders Award schemes. So I would heavily suggest, if you are going towards your Kings and you're doing your Platinum, to not only sign up to the Young Leaders Awards, but actually complete your missions, which is part of the award scheme. Because I've seen at least half dozen different young leaders over my couple of years I've been adult leader, who, unlike myself, didn't actually have much drive to complete the awards, or more unfortunately actually, did complete the missions for the full award scheme, and I know that they did, but didn't actually know that, or didn't really, keep that in mind, so they never got it signed off, and getting it signed off in future is very difficult once you've left it's very difficult once you've left Explorers. So I certainly bear that in mind and keep towards it, because it's worth mentioning as well that the awards for the Young Leaders Award, the belt that you get as part of the highest levels of that, is actually one of the only 2 belts you get awarded in Scouting. So if you don't get your Explorer belt for whatever reason, it's nice to have that and to be able to show it on your uniform and inspire the younger sections when you volunteer eventually as an adult scout, to do it themselves and to be their own young leader and be their own leader. So essentially, we're going to now cover the Duke of Edinburgh's Bronze Award and why that's important, and it's also, as I say, part of the requirements for getting your Platinum Award. So I'm just going to leave this fairly minimalistic, because you don't actually need too much information. You can delve into this yourself, and it depends a lot on what you want to do. But essentially, the way Bronze works is that you need to complete an expedition, which, as it says there, is 2 days and 1 night minimum, and 6 hours during the daytime. At least 3 of those must be spent journeying on those 2 days. So you can talk to your Explorer Scout leader about this. They'll have a great idea, and if not, they'll be able to contact their district and get more information from their Duke of Edinburgh support team. So basically for you, what this means is that at this point in your time in Scouting, you should have done this at least once without even thinking about it, perhaps in Scouts, where you've done a 2-day, 1-night hike, or a 2-day, 1-night camp at least, because that's just a regular weekend camp, right? It's just you add a few hours of journeying in there. The thing to bear in mind, though, is that this has to be planned by you. You have to do the route. You have to plan the route. You have to complete the route. You've got to plan the meals, which have to be actually, proper meals, not just pot noodles, right? And you need to carry all that food with you. The only time that the Explorer Scout leader or the Duke of Edinburgh assessor, who's going to be watching you, who may not be someone you actually know from inside Scouting, the only time they're going to help you is if you are incredibly lost or incredibly off route. Other than that, they're just going to be refilling your water supply. That's it. And keeping an eye on you when you're at a campsite. You have to carry your own tents, you have to carry your own food, you have to plan it all yourself, do it all yourself, right? And this is one of the things that make us, so well respected in the community and in the world of sort of survivalism. Scouting is so respected, especially in places like America, is because of the sort of that completeness, that you got to do it all yourself, carry it all yourself, and it means that if you were ever in a situation where you had to pull that kind of skill out, you can. And additionally, it's more to do with the resilience and self-reliance. This may be one of the first times you get to really show off your independence, be away from your parents for 2 days and a night, and actually go off and have to concentrate and focus and plan something. So it's really good as a trial for the day that you eventually move out and you go to, college or university, having that independence, that self-reliance, and not immediately, calling for help and things like that. Showing that you can do that and proving that to yourself and to other people is a huge thing. And the Bronze DV Duke of Edinburgh's Award is the first step towards that. And eventually you'll get to Gold, and eventually you'll get to Kings, and that'll be that's stuff that's recognised at universities very highly, and in the workforce very highly. There's more than a handful of times when people I know who've got the King Scout Award, the Queen Scout Award, as it was, have basically got jobs almost instantly because of it. Because people recognise that how important this kind of stuff is. And if you don't want to do a Duke of Edinburgh's Award, all you've got really when you go to college or university is your academic studies, your grades on a sheet. And in reality, everybody else is a very similar thing. This is the kind of thing that sets you apart from them, that goes, okay, I've actually done this. And moving on from the expedition side of things, you also have to do volunteering, a physical and a skills section, as it says there in the middle. One of them is 6 months, the other is 3 months, and you have to do at least 1 hour a week consistently. Okay? 1 hour a week or more, I will say, consistently. So generally, and this is a very easy way to do this, is that when people do this with schools and things like that, they tend to struggle a lot to find a volunteering place that will take them, actually, because they don't know if the person's just going to quit, after a week or something, and things like that. They've got to do a lot of asking around and ringing around and things. But one of the great things about being a scout and doing the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme is that you can literally just volunteer with your scout section or your cub section or your beaver section and just go to the weekly meetings for an hour or two. And that's a really easy way to do that. You don't have to think about that, really. You just sort of go, and you already know how that all works because you're a scout. And you can really contribute a great amount of experience, and all those badges you've earned across your time in scouting so far, that all comes back. That all is something you can pass on, and you get a real sense of it, like legacy almost. We are teaching these young people like yourself, and that's a great way to sort of broaden your impact on the world from a very very young age. Even if you're only you're only the age of 14 to 16 in explorers usually, and you're already making a difference to the world. And one of the things to mention there actually is by doing that and volunteering inside Scouts, as I mentioned before in this presentation, that also counts towards these Young Leaders Awards, right? Which I've actually put down at the bottom of the screen there. I'm just going to explain a little bit about that. So the Young Leaders Award, which I'll probably cover in a different presentation after this one, is essentially an award scheme that incentivizes and sort of recognizes Explorer Scouts and that basically go further and sort of want to give back to scouting and pass on those skills they've learned, those experiences they've learned to the younger sections. And for doing that, all three of these awards you see at the bottom of the screen here are things that you can wear on your adult uniform. And there's also a patch badge and 4 oak leaves that you can wear on your Explorer uniform that you've probably seen some people wear. And those are denoted by the central badge, which is an acorn, which is a sort of diamond shape that you get from completing your safeguarding, safety training, things like that, just to make sure that you know how to act around other young people. And each of the leaves, the oak leaves around, are for a mission, which is something very simple, trust me, about running some games, or planning a night, attending a planning meeting, and running a night. It's very easy things to do, just to tick them off very quickly. But you really are giving back to the Scouts when you do that. You give back to those younger sections where you once were, right? And once you've even just completed your core badge and done your trainings, and you've done some volunteering towards it, you earn that badge on the left there, which is an adult service award. There's not many of those that exist actually. Usually you only get awards like that to wear an adult uniform after 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever, how many years of service to scouting where you've regularly volunteered. But if you're a young leader and you've done some level of volunteering when you're in Explorers, you get that automatically on your uniform, and it's a great sign that you've actually done something there. So if you have even just a glimmer in your mind that at some point you might volunteer for a bit in Scouts, do try to earn that adult service award, because it's great stuff. And I think you can actually wear it on your Explorer uniform, if I'm not mistaken, actually, as well. So it's kind of interesting to be able to wear an adult award on an Explorer uniform, although citation needed on that one. And the other two here, I believe that the woggle on the right can actually be worn by anyone who's completed the base awards, like on the left there. Although again, I'll need to look into that. But the main thing is the one in the middle there. That's called the Young Leader Belt, and it's one of the only two belts you get awarded in Scouts. The other one being the Explorer Belt, which is brown belt with a separate sort of buckle on. But this sort of goes to show how important it is and how highly recognised it is in Scouting, where we consider completing this award and giving that much back to the Scouts as a young person, that you get to wear this and you get to wear it forever, up to the point, you know, when you're 50 years old or whatever, if you've been a leader for however long you want to lead, if you sign up after you finished, you know, network, then you can still wear this, because it goes to show that how much you actually contributed at your age towards Scouting as a movement in the UK, right? And the only other award that gets to wear a belt that's separate, that's different and distinguishes themselves, is the Explorer Belt, and that's from going to a different country for 10 days, travelling and immersing yourself in their culture, which is a huge step, obviously, to go off there pretty much unsupported and doing that, right, and playing all that yourself. You know, it's a pretty incredible achievement. So I definitely try and get that before you leave Explorers if you can. Try and get that Young Leaders Belt, because it's certainly something that, if nothing else, it looks great. Okay, moving on. We have alternatives. I'm going to briefly cover this, but if for some reason you were unable to do your Bronze Duke of Edinburgh's award, then you can do instead this, which is pretty much the same thing. I don't actually see much that's different. You can also do Young Leader stuff there, as it says number 3. But I'm not quite sure why you'd really do the Platinum Scout Challenges rather than the Bronze Duke of Edinburgh. But I guess if you, for some reason, can't sign up for whatever reason, or I'm not sure, but this also exists, that you can also do instead. But that's, yeah, a covering of all the different requirements really for the Platinum Chief Scouts Platinum Award. My recommendations for it, how you should look at it, and a sort of look forward, a sort of future perspective on what you should be considering when you're doing your Platinum Award, to think about your time sort of doing your King's Scout Award in future, and also that Young Leader, so it's the Young Leader Awards and those service awards that will look great on your adult uniform, and that are great sort of boons and assets there that you can earn. I hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments. Thanks.